What I'm about to share with you might surprise you, might even shock you. It's probably going to ruffle some people's feathers. But for those of you who are exhausted from chasing after respect and still feeling unfulfilled, then what you're going to discover today can change everything for you. Now, here's the truth that nobody else is telling you. Respect, both the respect of other people and self-respect, is a complete illusion. It just doesn't exist in the way that society has taught you. Now, you don't have to believe me because I'm actually going to prove this to you. Actually, I'm going to help you to prove it to yourself step by step today. And when you discover what you're going to discover today, unlike most people who will just continue to run circles chasing after this phantom of respect, you will actually begin to experience true fulfillment in your life. But first, let me guess some of the things that might be happening in your life. Maybe you have friends or family who never seem to take you into consideration when it comes time to making decisions. Or maybe you have friends who consistently talk over you or interrupt you during conversations. Maybe you even have coworkers who take credit for your work. Perhaps you feel invisible in social situations, or maybe you have a difficult time being heard during group discussions. Or maybe your dating prospects, or maybe even your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your partner, or your spouse doesn't seem to take a genuine interest in your thoughts or your experiences. Maybe they even sometimes roll their eyes when you speak. Or maybe it's just like this. Perhaps there are family members who still act as though you're not capable of making adult decisions. Well, everywhere you look, whether it's internet advice or it's well-intentioned therapists or it's self-help gurus, they all tell you the same thing. They say, you need more respect. You need to, to command respect from others, and you need to respect yourself. Maybe you've then tried some of the recommendations. Maybe you hit the gym. Maybe you practice those confident body language patterns. Maybe you memorized all of the names at networking events. Maybe you purchased a new wardrobe. Maybe you show up early to every single one of your appointments. And what happens? It's true, maybe some people sometimes do treat you differently. And maybe even for a little while, you feel more confident. But here's the problem. That sense of emptiness, that sense that something's missing, it's still there. And all of the fulfillment that was promised to you, it never arrived. Would you like to know why this keeps happening? The reason is that you're chasing a ghost. Now, I know this all too well because I lived that nightmare for decades. I thought I needed respect from everybody, from my parents, from my teachers, from my friends, even from my enemies, girlfriends, colleagues, bosses, employees, neighbors, you name it. I thought I needed everybody's respect all the time, and I thought that I couldn't be happy without it. But the truth was, I was miserable. I was terrified of actually being authentic because I thought that I needed respect more than authenticity. And as a result, I felt angry, I felt resentful, and I felt powerless in my own life. Now, on the outside, I appeared successful. I had money, I had recognition, I had talent. But on the inside, it was a totally different story. I was empty, lost, confused. I was in a tremendous amount of pain. Well, when I finally discovered that I had been chasing after a phantom the whole time, and I began to put into practice the methods that I'm going to share with you today, everything changed. I stopped chasing after respect and I started actually living. And you can do the same. Now, I'd like to start by examining this idea of respect from others. Now, of course, society has taught us that we need respect from others, and certainly sometimes it even feels like we need that respect, especially if we perceive that other people are disrespecting us. But have you ever actually asked yourself, what does respect from others even mean? I mean, how do you know when others respect you? And if you tell the truth, it's because of how other people behave. I mean, you wouldn't have any way of knowing otherwise. So maybe other people listen to you when you speak. Maybe other people acknowledge your expertise. Maybe they honor your time and your boundaries. Maybe they defer to your judgments or they seek out your opinions. The bottom line is that when we're talking about respect from others, what we're really talking about is other people behaving in ways that make it easy for you to feel valued. Or if we really boil it down to its essence, we could just say that respect from others is really just about other people behaving in the ways that you prefer. Now, that might be surprising and a little bit difficult to believe at first, but I propose that if you really examine it, you'll see that that's true. And here's the problem. You can't control how other people behave. Perhaps you've noticed this inconvenient truth in your own life. See, if you believe that you need other people to respect you, in other words, if you believe that you need other people to behave in the ways that you prefer, you're basically just giving away your power to forces that you don't have any control over. Now, again, I know that society has taught us that we need respect from others. I understand that that is a popular notion. But right now, you have a unique opportunity to actually investigate this and to discover whether that common advice is actually good advice. Does it actually help you in your life? Is it really useful? And you can start with this question. When you get respect from other people, what does that give you? Now, most people fantasize that when they get respect from other people, finally they will be able to experience love, peace, happiness, freedom, success, all the things that they think they really long for in life. Most people believe they cannot have those things unless or until other people respect them first. So now ask yourself this question. Who do you believe you need respect from? Is it your boss? Is it your parents, your children, your spouse, your neighbors, your friends? Maybe just other people in general? And when you get respect from those people, what do you imagine that will give you? Now, I'm not saying that it might not be pleasant if other people behaved in those ways. I mean, of course, it would be nice if other people were consistently kind, considerate, generous, patient. Who wouldn't like that? But the reality is, other people behave exactly the way they behave, and it's none of your business. And you don't want to make it your business because when you make it your business, you waste your energy focused on other people instead of focusing on yourself and taking care of your actual wants and needs. Now, here's another thing that you might possibly find a little disturbing, but hear me out on this because this could be useful information. A lot of the advice that people will give, both professionals and non-professionals alike, for how to get respect from other people, it actually is just manipulation tactics. I mean, think about it. Standing tall, making eye contact, speaking in particular ways, dressing in a particular way, having a particular physique. Even many of the subtler things, if you really tell the truth, they're just manipulation tactics. Now, some of those things might have other benefits. I'm not denying that. Like, having good posture is probably good for your health, and it might support having more mindful awareness, which has a multitude of benefits. But if you do these things motivated by trying to get respect from other people, which translates into trying to get other people to behave in the ways that you prefer, so that then you can finally give yourself permission to allow yourself to have what it is that you long for in your life. Can you see how that is indirect at best? Can you see how maybe that is not actually working out well in your life? Can you see how that might actually be causing pain for you? Now, this manipulation can be very subtle. I'll tell you a story to illustrate this. When I was in third grade, one day my teacher pulled me out of the classroom into the hallway, and there was another teacher standing there. And my teacher and this other teacher, they informed me that I had done something wrong, according to them, which had offended this other teacher, and they demanded that I apologize. Well, there was only one problem. I couldn't imagine what they were talking about. I mean, I had never thought about this other teacher. I had never interacted with this other teacher. I had no judgments or opinions of this other teacher. This other teacher never even entered my mind. So I couldn't imagine what I had done that was offensive to her. So I asked, what did I do? And they said, you should know, and you must write a letter of apology right now. So I did what they told me to do. I wrote a letter of apology, and my letter said this: I don't know what I did, but I'm sorry that I did it. Now, these teachers found this to be so endearing that they completely dropped the whole thing. And I felt some relief. But can you spot the manipulation? Now, it wasn't conscious, but unconsciously, I wanted their respect more than I wanted to be true to myself, more than I wanted to honor my own values. And as a result, I violated my own values. You see, I value honesty and I value learning. But think about this. How is it possible to apologize for something unless you know what it is, you agree that you did it, and you agree that it was wrong? Otherwise, it's not possible to offer an apology. Now, even in my third grade mind, I knew that. But I wanted their respect more than I wanted to honor my own values. And as a result, I robbed myself of the opportunity to choose in alignment with my values and to learn something of value. And instead, I just stayed stuck, plain small. Now, there is a second problem, and it's a very serious problem with seeking for approval from other people. And this one is subtle, but it can be devastating. I believe that this reason is the reason why many people remain stuck in life their whole lives. And it's this. Now, this might be difficult to accept at first, but hear me out and just take a look in your own life and see the truth of it. Many of the demands that we have for respect from other people involves honoring our boundaries. Now, some boundaries are healthy and important to have, but many of the boundaries that we have are actually designed to avoid triggering our unhealed traumas. And the reason this matters is that every unhealed trauma that you have drains your energy. Now, a single energy drain in your life can make the difference between living a life of fulfillment and a life of unfulfillment. But think about it for a moment. You have a lot of these things, don't you? I mean, think about all of the old resentments, the regrets, the guilt, the shame, the blame, all of the things that you think you cannot think about, you cannot feel, you cannot go there. You don't want to be reminded of these things. All of those things are draining your energy and they're preventing you from actually experiencing the life of fulfillment that you want. Now, if everybody always treated you the way that you wanted, it would actually prevent you from growing. It would keep you stuck with all of these old unhealed wounds. Now, am I saying that you should subject yourself to genuine abuse? No, I am not. I want to be really clear about that. Neither am I saying that in some misguided attempt at personal growth, you should therefore subject yourself consciously to all kinds of unpleasantness. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that if you want true fulfillment, you have to go deeper than the surface level of respect. Instead, what's necessary is to actually look a little deeper and discover what you really want, what really matters to you, what you value. And then to consistently make choices aligned with that. And that doesn't require respect. That doesn't require other people's approval or opinions or behavior. You don't have to care one iota about any of that in order to have clarity about what you want, what really matters to you, and to make choices consistently aligned with that. And when you do that, you will experience fulfillment. Now, let's take a moment to explore the other type of respect that most people think they need, which is self-respect. Now, I'll be honest with you. It sounds nice, doesn't it? I mean, people say things like, you should just respect yourself, or success begins with self-respect. These sound nice, but if you actually think about it, they're completely meaningless statements because they don't tell you anything about what you could actually do. And so you just stay stuck. So let's take a look at what self-respect actually means. And I dug around on this and I did quite a lot of investigation and I looked to all kinds of sources, including professional and non-professional sources. And what I discovered was convenient that there is a great consensus on what self-respect actually means. And it comes down to these two things. One is that self-respect is defined as having a sense of self-worth. And the other is that self-respect is both generated by and produces self-love and self-care. Now you might say, well, Joey, that sounds good. I could certainly do some more self-worth, some more self-love, and some more self-care. So sign me up for this self-respect business. I'll take all I can get. But not so fast, because my proposal to you is that this idea of self-respect is actually a distraction that prevents you from achieving what you really want. So let's examine both of these two definitions, or these two aspects of the definition, to see what we can discover. And I promise this is going to be worth your while. So first, let's start with self-worth. Sounds nice, right? I mean, you'd probably say, well, gee, I could do some more of that. But what does it actually mean? And are you sure that it actually applies to you? And my proposal is that the idea of worth as applied to a human is absolute nonsense. And if you think that you need more self-worth, then you might as well try to drink from a mirage. You will never achieve that, and you will always end up empty-handed and unfulfilled. And so I actually propose that this makes a big difference. If you think that self-worth is a real thing, you are always going to be unfulfilled. And when you realize that it is a complete mirage, you can actually start to direct your attention to what will give you real fulfillment. So I'm going to help you to prove to yourself that self-worth is absolute nonsense. Begin by imagining a newborn infant human child. You got that? Have you pictured that? Now answer this question. How much is that baby worth? It's absurd, isn't it? Because hopefully you can agree at least that no infant, no human child should be a commodity in a marketplace. But the idea of worth only applies to commodities in a marketplace, right? So you can hopefully acknowledge that the idea of worth does not apply at all to an infant. Well, now, you yourself were once an infant, weren't you? So by your own admission, at that time, the idea of worth did not apply to you. So now here's my question to you. At what point did the idea of worth begin to apply to you? Was it when you were 1 year old? When you were 2? Perhaps when you were 5? When you were 20? And the correct answer is never, because the idea of worth never, ever applies to any human. Can you see that that's true? You never had any worth, and this is good news because you never needed it. If you think that you need worth, you'll never have it, and you'll always be disappointed, and you'll always be wasting your energy. But when you discover the truth of this, that you don't need worth, that worth doesn't even make any sense, it's complete nonsense when applied to a human, you free yourself instead to put your attention on what really matters, what will really give you true fulfillment. Second part of this definition of self-respect is that, and this should raise a red flag immediately, but I'm not making this up. I found this very same definition everywhere I looked. Self-care and self-love generates self-respect, and self-respect produces self-care and self-love. Why do we need to introduce this absolute nonsense concept of self-respect into the middle when what we're really talking about is simply self-care and self-love? Does this make sense? Why do we need to introduce this made-up concept? All we're talking about is self-care and self-love. And I can take this even further. And this might shock you, but let this sink in because this is the truth. Self-care and self-love are the natural expressions of you. The only reason why you would not be expressing self-care and self-love is because of limiting beliefs and unhelpful conditioning. You don't need to add something to yourself in order to have self-care and self-love. All you need to do is release that which is interfering with it. And that is possible using the methods that I'm going to share with you today. So, just in a moment, I'm going to share with you these four methods that you can use to absolutely allow yourself to experience true fulfillment in your life and completely let go of this nonsense idea of respect. When you do this, everything in your life will change. As I said earlier, this allowed me to stop chasing respect and begin to actually live. And you can do the same. So I'm going to share those with you in just a moment. First, let me just recap so this is clear. So I have just laid out for you that, and I hope that you can agree with this, that respect is of two varieties, respect from others and respect for yourself. Now, when it comes to respect from others, the problem is that what we're really talking about is the behavior of others. And you don't get to control that. But if you try to control that through indirect means, you're just wasting your energy. And even worse, you may be holding back your own growth because you may be avoiding confronting your own unhealed traumas. Now, of course, facing your unhealed traumas might be temporarily uncomfortable. I admit that. But the long-term consequences of avoiding your unhealed traumas is catastrophic. So that's respect from others. And then self-respect consists of the idea of self-worth, which I've completely dismantled. Hopefully you can agree with that. And that we don't actually need to introduce this middleman concept of self-respect when all we're really talking about is self-care and self-love. So now I'd like to share with you these four methods. And these are the four methods that I have personally used to completely transform my own life. And I know that you can do the same. Now, do you have to use all four of these methods in order to get results? No, you do not. Now, sometimes I know, and I would really be genuinely interested in hearing feedback from people about this because I know that I might err on the side of sharing too much, giving too much information. And some people do tell me, Joe, you're giving away too much for free. And my perspective on that is that I don't want ever for there to be a paywall between the information that you need in order to be able to help yourself to experience the results that you want in your life. So I prefer to just give away everything because I know then that you can actually get the results for yourself because this is what I was longing for all of those years. You know, in my own life, I was suffering tremendously for decades, and I was searching for these things, and it took me a long time to find them. So actually, when at this point in my life in 2012, when I had really reached this critical moment, and I was, and I know this seems very dramatic, but it's true. I really perceived that I was on the brink of death because I'd pushed myself so far with all this chronic stress, trying to fix myself. And I got to a point and I realized I can't go on this way. I need to do something differently. And I made a vow. And that vow was if I discover things that actually work, if I discover things that actually can help me to experience what I really want in life and stop harming myself unwittingly, then I vow to share this with others so that they can also get the results. And I've taken that quite seriously over the years, and I have made a real commitment to following through on that. That's why I share all this information. Now, I know that it's a lot. You know, this is way more than pretty much anybody else shares, like on YouTube, for example. And so if it's too much, I would like you to let me know. Because, you know, if it's too much and that's not useful for you, please let me know. And then I can use that information skillfully because I want to make sure that this is optimized for you so that you can actually benefit maximally. And and if too much is not working for you, then let me know so that I can make an adjustment to that. But my assumption up to now has been that if I give you all of the knowledge and I keep giving you that knowledge, then you will be able to make use of that in order to get the results in your life. So please let me know, you know, like when people watch this on YouTube, leave a comment and let me know. Is this working for you? Is it too much? Is it too little? Just give me some feedback on that. So you don't have to use all four of these methods in order to get results. Any one of these methods will give you results. The reason I'm sharing all four of these methods is because not everybody is going to get the same kinds of results from all of the methods, right? So everybody's a little different. All of these methods work for everybody, but not everybody is going to get exactly the same results from every single one of the methods. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, then I'll try and improve that in the future. But the but by giving you all four of these methods, you can approach this from so many different angles so that you are virtually guaranteed the results so long as you apply yourself consistently and persistently to working with these and finding which of them give you the results that you want. So I'm sharing all four of these with you. And what I actually recommend, if you're new to all of these, that you choose just one that appeals to you and work with that consistently for several weeks. Start to get the results. Show up to these meetings live if possible, and then you can ask questions about these things during the group coaching that follows. That way you can actually get the results. So that's my main recommendation is choose one that appeals to you and work with that one consistently. And once you've worked with that for a while and you have some degree of familiarity with it, if you want to start to work with another one, if you feel like you're not getting the total results that you want, you can add in another one at that time. So the first of these methods that I want to share with you is the method that I call the active relaxation method. And the reason why this matters when it comes to the idea of wanting respect from other people is that if you notice, anytime that you're having a problem, anytime that you're experiencing distress, anytime that you're experiencing anxiety, guilt, shame, frustration, disappointment, discouragement, fear, anything, you name it, anytime you're experiencing that problem, the reason why you know you're having a problem is because you feel it. This was an insight. It's such a simple yet powerful insight that totally changed my life when I had this insight in 2012. Because as I mentioned, up to that point, I had been pushing myself into so much chronic distress that I couldn't take it any longer. And I had been trying to fix that by so many methods. I mean, I had tried so many things. I'd tried affirmations and yoga and meditation and all these different things for many years. And I'm not saying that none of those things work or have value. It's just that I wasn't able to make them work for me because I was missing this key insight. And that key insight is that I realized that all of the problems that I was having, I knew that I was having those problems because I was feeling it. Now, I had tried to change that through all of these various ways, but none of them had worked because none of the things that I had I done them with this insight in mind. Once I had this insight, what I realized is that why not just go directly to putting attention on the feeling instead of trying indirectly to address this by all these other methods? Why don't I just go directly to the feeling and put my attention on that, which is what I started to do. And what I noticed was, and I guess I'm a slow learner because it took me a long time to discover this, but what I realized was that the feeling actually consisted of sensations, physical sensations. So I'm a simple person. These are simple insights, but they're so powerful, so don't overlook them. So just check that out for yourself. Just notice right now, any problem that you have, you know you have that problem because you feel it. I mean, think about this for a moment. Think about any problem that you have and notice if you didn't feel it, would you have the problem? And you can say no, because you wouldn't have the problem. I mean, you try just imagine if you thought all the supposedly problematic thoughts, right? I don't have enough money, nobody loves me, I'm going to die, I'm no good. You could think all those thoughts that you associate with the problem. But if you didn't feel anything, you wouldn't have a problem. They would just be thoughts. They would just be sounds. They wouldn't mean anything. You wouldn't have a problem. Does this make sense? So the actual problem is what you're feeling. And this, when I discovered this, and I discovered that the feeling was really just physical sensations, I thought, well, this is fascinating. Let me investigate this a little bit. And by investigating that, what I discovered was that it was actually possible to have a totally different relationship with that. And in having that totally different relationship, my whole life changed. I couldn't believe that something so simple could actually make such a profound difference, but it did, and it has, and it continues to. So from that, I developed this active relaxation method, which again, don't be deceived by the simplicity of it, because when you put this into practice consistently, guarantee, I can absolutely guarantee this. I know that this is true, that when you practice this consistently, your life will change for the better. It has to. There is no way that it could not. You can learn this or think of this with just three steps. And those steps are pause, scan, release. So you can do this right now as I'm giving you these instructions. So pause means just to shift your attention to the physical sensations that you're experiencing. So whatever you might be thinking or imagining, you just shift your attention instead to noticing the physical sensations. That's pause. Scan means to gently, systematically, and repeatedly scan those sensations in the body. I like to do it from head to toe. You can do it however you want. And the third step is release. And you do this as you are scanning. So as you scan, you notice anything that you could let go of, and you just have the intention to let go. Now, an important point here is that letting go does not mean getting rid of something. When you let go, whatever you let go of may remain or it may go. And it's no longer any of your business whether it remains or it goes when you let go. So letting go just means to stop trying to do something with it. And that letting go might be very profound or it might be very subtle. So there's no right or wrong way to do that other than just to have that genuine intention. And if what you perceive that you let go of is just 1% of what could be let go of, that's fine. You just let go of whatever it's possible for you to let go of easily right now. So you just scan repeatedly from head to toe or in whatever way you like to do it. And just notice as you're scanning, what could you possibly let go of? And you just have that intention and allow that to be let go to whatever degree it's let go. Again, not trying to get rid of anything. And as you do this, things begin to change. Things begin to change actually immediately because the instant that you start this, you are stopping the vicious cycle of worsening tension, worsening stress, worsening sense of problem. And as you continue to do it, it will start to unravel the old conditioning so that those old habits cease to be there at all. So this is a longer term experience that happens through practicing this repeatedly and consistently. But it does happen, and sometimes it doesn't take that long. Sometimes some of these very significant changes can take place even within the space of even just a few hours. And that doesn't necessarily mean having to practice nonstop for several hours. It's just even within a few hours of a few little practices, just for a few seconds or minutes at a time, very significant changes can start to happen. So, as I said, don't dismiss or overlook the tremendous power of this. When you work with this consistently, your life will change. And the way that this connects to respect is that anytime that you find yourself experiencing any kind of distress because you perceive that you're being disrespected or you think you need respect from others or whatever it is, just practice the active relaxation method and notice what happens. You'll find that things start to shift. Your ideas start to loosen up. You stop believing your own thoughts. They're not even your own thoughts, to be honest. You'll start to notice that these are just thoughts that you inherited from other people who told you that you need respect from others. But you'll start to discover in your own direct experience that it doesn't matter whatsoever, because in your own direct experience, you can allow yourself to experience peace right now. You can allow yourself to experience freedom right now. You can allow yourself to actually care for yourself by practicing active relaxation right now. You can allow yourself to love yourself by practicing active relaxation right now. You don't need to wait for anybody else to give you permission. That's the amazing thing about this. This is profoundly life altering. So I highly recommend that you give this a serious commitment in your life, even if you only practice this just once a day. You will notice changes start to take place in your life. So that's the active relaxation method. That's the first. The second method that I want to share with you is a method that it is going to allow you to begin to very profoundly heal and transform all of your traumas. So you might remember that I mentioned about how the negative impact that unhealed traumas can have in your life. It's very, very profound. So the somewhat surprising truth is that most people are not actually present to what's happening. Most people instead are reacting to their beliefs about what did happen in the past. And if you really just start to observe your own experience, you'll perhaps be shocked to notice that this is true for you. Even though you might think that you're present, a lot of the time you are not. You're just reacting to your beliefs about what happened in the past. I mean, think about how many times in your life when you thought you understood what was going on, only to later find out that you were mistaken. You thought that you understood what somebody else intended or meant, only to find out that you were mistaken about that. That wasn't at all what they meant. You thought you had read the situation in one way and that you thought that was the truth, only to find out that you were wrong. This is actually happening way more often than you think. It's happening most of the time. And this is the consequence of these unhealed traumas, because most of the time, those unhealed traumas take over. We're reacting because of those unhealed traumas, trying to protect ourselves because we're interpreting everything through the lens of fear, believing that this is a hostile universe populated by hostile people with hostile intentions and that we have to protect ourselves constantly. And we learn these things in childhood, and some of that might have been valid, a valid interpretation. But that does not mean that it's still true. And most of us are still operating as though things that we learned when we were 1 year old are actually true. But you've changed a lot since then. You have so much more available to you. But if you're operating still as though you are a 1 year old, and I promise you, a lot of the time you are, that can have a really negative impact in your life. You know, you can feel really disempowered, even though you have a tremendous amount of power. You can feel as though you don't have access to resources, even though you do have access to resources. And this is just because of those unhealed traumas. So, working with this method can produce a really radical shift in your experience because you can begin to actually be present to what's happening, which I can't even begin to tell you what a difference that can make. I mean, just think about, like I was talking about earlier, all of those unhealed traumas are actually causing energy loss in your life. So every one of those that you heal allows you to stop leaking that energy, which allows you to direct that energy toward what you want, which allows you to manifest much more powerfully. It allows you to have much more harmonious relationships at the very least, because you won't be reacting to all of these things that you think are happening that aren't even happening. And by the way, sometimes if you're right about what's happening, you can actually start to act in your own self-interest instead of reacting with all this unnecessary drama, right? So it allows for a lot more empowerment in your life. So this is a method that I call the rapid resolution method. And I've shared this before, but today I'm going to share another tip for using this that can take it to the next level. So the rapid resolution method is based on the insight that what we resist persists. So the more that you try to avoid something, the larger it looms, the more impact that it has in your life. And I discovered this also in 2012 when I had this insight and I realized, well, all these things that I'm trying to avoid are really causing a lot of problems in my life. And it doesn't seem to be getting better. Actually, it seems to be getting worse the more that I tried to avoid. And I became masterful at avoiding, by the way. I mean, when I talked about earlier about the negative impact that it can have, trying to insist that other people should behave in certain ways to avoid triggering these unhealed traumas, I know that from my own experience. I can't even tell you how many relationships I ruined because of this. And many people were trying to comply, but it became impossible. There's no way that anybody could possibly ever behave so perfectly and consistently so as to avoid triggering any of these unhealed traumas. So this working with the rapid resolution method has given me so many benefits in my life. I mean, it helped me to cure myself of OCD. It helped me to eliminate anxiety, and it helped me to resolve depression in my life that had been longstanding. It also has produced so many other benefits. I mean, I've healed from a lot of chronic health conditions, also what I attribute to this, as well as the active relaxation method. So the rapid resolution method works like this. So you choose something that is triggering for you, something that you want to avoid, something that you feel uh, an unwanted emotional charge attached to. So maybe you experience anxiety, fear, anger, shame, regret, humiliation, whatever it is. So it could be a memory, it could be something contemporary, it could be some recurring thing in your life, it could be a particular person or interactions with a particular person, anything where you have an unwanted emotional charge attached to it. And once you've selected that, uh, the next step that I'm going to suggest is optional, but this is the extra tip that I'm going to provide to you today that can make this even more powerful. And that is that you notice how you feel when you think about whatever this topic is. So we'll call this topic the presenting problem. So the thing that you start with is, well, I'll call it the presenting problem to be able to refer to it. So whatever that memory or recurring problem or relationship interaction or whatever it is, we'll call that the presenting problem. So you now ask yourself or notice how you feel when you think about that or when you are experiencing that in your life. And then ask yourself this question: when is the first time I can remember feeling this feeling? And whatever that is, it doesn't have to be the very first time you ever felt the feeling. It's the first time that comes to mind now. Whatever that is, we're going to, I'm going to refer to this as the first memory. And the first memory is either when this programming first began, or it's at least an earlier incarnation of it. And what the pattern that plays out is that when you heal the earlier thing, that will ripple out in your life and it will resolve things anywhere else in your life that this is touching will be resolved when you heal that first memory. So you elicit that first memory. So you start with the presenting problem, then you notice how you feel, and then you ask yourself, when is the first time I can remember feeling this feeling? And this will elicit the first memory. Now, you're going to use the remaining steps to process and release the emotional charge attached to that first memory. You can use these steps to process and release the emotional charge with the presenting problem. That's how I've shared this before, and it works very well. That's how I used this process initially in order to get most of the results that I got with it. So it's very, very effective. However, when you elicit the first memory, it's even more powerful, which is why I'm sharing this tip now. So the remaining steps, which can be used either with the presenting problem or the first memory, are very simple, and it's just this. So you are going to uh, give yourself a subjective rating of distress or emotional charge that's attached to whatever it is you're working with. So either presenting problem or first memory. I'll just use first memory from here on out just to make it simpler. So you would ask yourself, on a scale from 0 to 10, what is the emotional intensity attached to this first memory? Then you're going to notice what's the worst thing about it. So you just notice what's the worst thing about it, whatever that is. And then you're going to invite yourself to allow that for just a moment. So you want to just open up to that, allow it, welcome it as completely as you possibly can right now, just for a second or two, no longer. Then you're going to shift your attention to something else. It doesn't particularly matter what it is, but I'll give you some suggestions of things that do seem to work well. So one is you could just notice what's around you, and sometimes counting things around you can be really a good way to do this. So you could ask yourself, how many green things can I see around me? Or how many orange things can I see around me? Or you could count shapes. You could say, how many circles do I see around me? Or how many squares do I see around me? So you could just count those things. Or you could ask yourself silly trivia questions. Or you could just count backward from like 10 to 1. Any of these things will work. Other things could also work, but those are things that I have consistently seen that work well. And the idea here is just you want to shift attention away for just a few seconds. So 5 to 10 seconds is plenty. Then you're just going to repeat those steps. So you're going to ask yourself, now when I think about this first memory, on a scale from 0 to 10, what is the emotional charge? It might go up, it might go down, it might stay the same, but whatever it is, it's fine. You just wanting to get a reading on that. And then you're going to ask yourself, what's the worst thing about this? So when you think about that memory, what's the worst thing about it? Then you're going to invite yourself to completely open to that for just a moment, just for 1 or 2 seconds, as best you can, as completely as you can. Then you're going to shift your attention to something else for a few seconds. You're going to just continue to repeat those steps until the emotional charge is 0. And importantly, you cannot provoke it. So this is an important point. If you really want to get total resolution on it, try and find whatever you can to provoke it. And when you can't provoke it, when it still remains 0, then you're done. This can be surprisingly fast. Sometimes I often will use this process when working with people, and people are shocked sometimes when something that has been bothering them profoundly for years, for decades, for their whole life, can be completely cleared up, sometimes in the space of just 2 minutes. So it can be very fast, and the results are complete, total, and lasting. So that is the rapid resolution method. It really is that simple, and it really does work. You just have to be willing to work it. Now, the way that I would recommend approaching this would be to make a list of all of the things that have unwanted emotional charge attached to them, and then just go through that list using this process. When you use um, the tip that I've shared with you today to elicit that first memory, you can usually go through that list very fast because many of the things in the list will actually be linked to earlier memories. So when you clear the earlier memory, then a lot of the things automatically will resolve on that list. So that's the second method. So the second method is rapid resolution method. Third method that I want to share with you. Oh, well, let me also just make it clear before I go on to the third method, how this rapid resolution method will help with it in regard to respect. So um, if you notice that you are feeling triggered because you feel like other people are not respecting you, then uh, put that on your list because that's something that is producing an unwanted emotional charge, and process that. Once you have cleared all the charges attached to those things, then the one of two things will happen. One of three things will happen. Okay, one is that you'll actually realize that it doesn't bother you anymore. You don't care. It just is irrelevant. It doesn't matter at all. That's one possibility. Another possibility, which is nice, right? I mean, if you think you're upset because this person is behaving this way, they're disrespecting you by not considering you, by whatever they're doing, and if you actually don't care anymore, that's really nice. Then you don't have to change anything, and you're happy, and you can just focus on what you want. Another possibility is you'll realize that actually you really don't you actually don't like their behavior. It's actually interfering in some way that's not just because of an emotional charge, but it's actually a hindrance in your life in terms of what you want. In which case, you might make some choices around that, right? You might just be like, actually, I don't want to hang around this person anymore. A third possibility is the other person, because you no longer have that emotional charge, that other person is no longer going to be unconsciously motivated to behave in those ways. So the other person might change. Either they'll just change their behavior or they'll decide they don't want to hang around you anymore. But whatever the resolution is, you'll be very happy. That's the key thing. Okay, so third method that I want to share with you. Um, what is the third method I want to share with you? Oh yes, third method I want to share with you is the important. So there's a tremendous importance in actually knowing what you want. So notice that when it comes to respect, as I pointed out, if you want respect from others, it's because you're wanting other people to give you permission for you to have and experience what you want. So a lot of the time, though, the problem is that we actually don't know what we want. I know that might seem strange, but a lot of the time we don't actually know what we want because we're just so hung up on thinking that we need permission from other people before we can have what we want. So why do we need to bother knowing what we want if we're not even at the point of getting what we want because we think other people are interfering with that? But when you actually have clarity about what you want, this can be enormously powerful because then instead of wasting your time focusing on other people, you can just put your attention on what you want. I know for me, this was a very, very powerful change in my life because what I discovered was that what I wanted more than anything else was peace. And I realized that I could give myself that anytime that I wanted. That was not dependent on anybody or anything else. And once I realized that, then I stopped focusing on any buddy else or anything else. Instead, I just started to focus on giving myself what I really wanted. And for me, that was pretty easy because it just, for the most part, it just involved the active relaxation method, right? It's just like all I have to do anytime that I'm being triggered is just remember, what do I really want? What I really want is peace. I can choose that now. It's totally changed my life for the better. So um, today, I'd like to specifically focus on identifying what you want in the context of respect. So I have some questions, some prompts that I have that I prepared that I'm going to read here from the screen that can, I think, be really helpful for you to identify what you want specifically in the context of respect. So here they are. The first one: when others respect me, that means fill in the blank. And so these are prompts that you can use to just write out your responses. And my suggestion to you is that you just allow whatever comes to your mind and just write that down. And just do this repeatedly until you don't have any more answers, which might take, 10 seconds or it might take 10 minutes. But if you censor because you consciously don't agree with something, then you'll actually hold yourself back from getting the complete results with this. So instead, just don't censor, just give voice to those subconscious parts of yourself by writing down whatever comes to mind. So the first one is when others respect me, that means fill in the blank. Second one is when others respect me, I can or I will fill in the blank. The third is when others respect me, that allows me fill in the blank. When others respect me, that allows me fill in the blank. And the next one is I need others to respect me so that fill in the blank. And then there's four more. And so the next one is when I respect myself, that means fill in the blank. Next is when I respect myself, I can or I will fill in the blank. Then when I respect myself, that allows me fill in the blank. And then the last one is I need to respect myself so that fill in the blank. So the idea here is just that these prompts can help you to identify some of the beliefs that you have about what you're looking for through respect. Now, as many of you who have been around before, you're probably familiar with what's going to happen next, which is it can be really valuable to identify what you want expressed as core values. So, a core value or a high level value is something that you can satisfy unconditionally within yourself. It does not depend upon external conditions or circumstances. Now, I can't tell you exactly what words will signify that for you, but I can tell you that oftentimes those core values will be expressed using words such as love, peace, happiness, freedom, contentment, harmony. So so it's possible that some of your responses will already be expressed in that way. But it's also likely that many of your responses will not yet be expressed in that way. So what you can do in order to find out what uh, those core values are is for anything that's not already expressed as a core value, you can ask the question, when I have that, what will that give me? So I'll give you an example of this just so that this can be clear. So let's say that I use the prompt, when others respect me, that means, and I could say, when others respect me, that means that they think well of me. So then I could say, when others think well of me, what does that give me? And I say, when others think well of me, then I experience uh, peace. So peace is almost certainly then a core value. So in this example, I quickly arrived at that core value. Now it's possible that the there might be a series of these. So it could be, for example, when others respect me, that means they think well of me. And I could say, okay, when others think well of me, what does that give me? And I might say, well, when others think well of me, that allows me um, uh, to have a sense of safety with others. I could say, ask the same question recursively here. So I could say, when I have a sense of safety with others, what does that give me? And maybe the answer to that would be peace or happiness or whatever. So there might be a series of these that you'd have to go through, continuing to ask that question recursively when when I have that, what does that give me? But ultimately, this will give you a list. This will give you your core values that you're really wanting to fulfill through this idea of respect. And so, what I recommend then is that you then make a list of those core values. So you go through all of the responses and identify the core values and make a list of them. And then, if you really want to take this to the next level, put them in order of priority. So you ask yourself, in the context of respect, what's most important to me? And you go through your list of those core values and put them in order of priority. And the reason why this matters, why this can be really useful, is that when you identify what is the value that matters most to you in this context, what you can know is that if you choose that, that will actually give you everything else. Everything else that you value will actually be fulfilled through choosing what matters to you most. That might not be obvious at first, but in practice, it actually works out that way. And so, in a practical sense, why this really matters is that if you find yourself in a situation where you've been triggered and therefore you're not really present and you're under stress, you're not in a good position then to figure out, well, what really matters to me most? What's my core value? You're not in a position to do that. But if you've already done the work in advance, then you can remember that and then you can choose it. So in my own case, as I said, I discovered that what mattered most to me was peace. So, do I value happiness? Yes. Do I value love? Yes. Do I value joy? Yes. Do I value all these? Yes. But I value peace more. And because I was able to know that, I was able to then just choose peace in any situation. Even though in the moment, if you had said, is peace what you want most right now? I might not have been able to answer that. If you had said, do you want happiness more than you want peace right now? I might have said, I don't know, maybe. But if I had allowed myself to remain in that confusion, I wouldn't have actually chosen peace and I wouldn't have gotten the results. And by doing that work in advance and knowing what was most important, I was able to just consistently choose what I already knew mattered most to me. And as a result of that, I was able to choose that much more consistently. And therefore, I got the results. So it's really worth doing the work. Even if there might be a part of your mind that says, well, this is silly, it doesn't really matter. It matters in as much as in the moment, if you're confused, you won't choose. But if you've already gotten the clarity in advance, then you can just remember that and choose, and then you'll get the results. So that's the third method that I wanted to share with you, and hopefully that's clear to you how that applies to respect, because that was the context. Fourth method, fourth and final method for today. Now, all of the other methods that I've given you, more or less, um, it's kind of like foolproof. I mean, if you did any one of those, that's going to give you amazing results. If you did all three of those, there's almost no way that you would not get total results in your life. But I wanted to give you this one additional method just because sometimes in some situations, it works a little better for some people. And so this fourth method is to identify what are the beliefs that you have that are interfering with you choosing what you want. Now, as I said, if you just worked with all three of the methods that I've given you so far, it pretty much guarantees that you get the complete results. But like if you clear all of the emotional charges attached to all of your prior traumas, then you mostly are not going to find yourself in this position. But sometimes it might happen for whatever reason that you're in a situation where you are wanting something, you know what you want, you've done that work, you know that you want peace or love or happiness or whatever it is. But for whatever reason, you feel blocked from choosing that. You have internal resistance to that. And so there are multiple different ways that you could work with that. But one way that you can work with that that's pretty simple is to identify what is the belief that you have, which is standing in the way. So I think of this kind of like you imagine that you are wanting to go to your favorite restaurant and you're walking on a path that you know leads to your favorite restaurant. But along the way, you encounter this wall, this enormous wall that's blocking the path, and the wall seems to extend in either direction as far as you can see, and it's a very tall wall that you don't seem to be able to scale. So now you're in a position where you think, well, gee, I want to go to this restaurant. The restaurant's on the other side of the wall. How am I going to get there? So the in this metaphor, the restaurant represents what you want, right? So you've done the work, you know what you want, whatever that is. You want love, peace, happiness, something that you know that you can choose within yourself. And yet, sometimes along the way to that, you encounter this wall, this obstacle. And so perhaps you've experienced that in your life where you know what you want, but strangely, you feel blocked from choosing that. So there's an internal resistance. So identifying that as a belief and then releasing that can be really, really effective. And so one way that you can do this is you could ask yourself this question. So if you're in that situation, you know that you know what you want, but you seem to be blocked from choosing that. You could just allow your subconscious to reveal to you what that limiting belief or beliefs are by asking yourself. You could say, I know I want to choose whatever it is that you want to choose, but I can't because I know this sounds like way too simple to work, but it really will work if you just allow your subconscious then to fill in the blank. So I want to choose whatever it is you want to choose. I want to choose peace. I want to choose happiness, but I can't because, and then you just fill in the blank. Allow your subconscious mind to provide you with the answer. And any answers that come up, just write them down. It might be one answer, it might be 10 answers, whatever they are, write them down. And those will be the beliefs that you have that are interfering. So in my own life, for example, uh, I have, uh, I know that I want peace, but I might encounter a situation in which I feel afraid. I feel afraid. And then that may make it challenging to choose peace. It shouldn't have to make it challenging, but it might because I might have limiting beliefs. So I could ask myself, I could say, well, I want to choose peace, but I can't because, and then I could fill in the blank. I want to choose peace, but I can't because uh, I need I need everything to be perfectly controlled before I can be at peace. I'd like to choose peace, but I can't because um, people around me are sometimes dangerous. I'd like to choose peace, but I can't because. So I just fill in the blank with whatever comes up in my from my subconscious mind. So now you've identified what those limiting beliefs are that are interfering with you choosing what you want. And there are many ways that you can release limiting beliefs. I have a whole course on that actually. But today I'm going to share with you one very, very simple yet incredibly effective method for achieving this. It's so simple you might think that couldn't possibly work. And yet it does so long as you work with it. So this is based on a very simple polarity process. And the setup in this particular case is that, and you don't have to understand this for it to work. I'm just going to explain it, and then you can actually put it into practice. But the two ends of the polarity in this case are on the one hand that I can't access or choose what it is that I want because of whatever that limiting belief is. Right. So in the example that I gave, I can't choose peace because nothing because I don't have complete control over everything around me. I can't choose peace because I don't have complete control of everything around me. So that would be the belief. That's the limiting belief. The other end of the polarity is, on the other hand, even though I have the belief that I need to control everything around me in order to have peace, I still want to choose peace. So, so the two ends of the polarity, one end is I can't choose what I want because of this limiting belief. And the other end of the polarity is even though I have that belief, I still want to choose what I want. And the process is so simple, yet it really works, is you just alternate your attention between these two things. So using my example, I would put my attention, I'd say, on the one hand, I can't choose peace because I can't control everything in this situation. On the other hand, even though I can't control everything in this situation, I still want peace. On the one hand, I can't experience peace in this situation because I can't control everything in this situation. On the other hand, even though I can't control everything in this situation, I still want peace. So I just alternate between these two. And in a pretty short amount of time, something will shift and I'll realize that I no longer believe in that limitation. So there'll be a felt shift. The idea of that limitation becomes nonsensical. You no longer believe it. It usually doesn't take more than 5 alternations. It can happen in as little as one. Again, I know it probably seems absurdly, ridiculously simple. You might think that couldn't work, but it does, as long as you do it. So how does this help in regard to respect? So if you feel yourself to be disrespected and you know what you want, but you have a difficult time choosing that in that moment, you can use this method. Just ask yourself to elicit the belief. So I want to choose whatever you want to choose, but I can't because, and just figure out what are those beliefs. Just write them down. Let your subconscious reveal it to you. And then you just alternate between, on the one hand, I can't have what I want because of this belief. On the other hand, even though I have that belief, I still want whatever it is I want. And I promise you that it will work. You will be amazed. Put it into tests, to the test, and then let me know what your results are. So those are the four methods. Now, again, do you have to use all four methods to get the results? No. Start with just one of them. Choose any one of them that makes sense to you. My recommendation is if you haven't already started with the active relaxation method, start with that one. You will be amazed at what changes that can make in your life. You will be amazed at how much more empowered you are. You'll be amazed at how many positive things start to happen, both internally and externally, as a result of working with that consistently. Once you've worked with that consistently, and if you're not totally satisfied with the results that you're getting, then begin to work with another one of the methods. My recommendation would be start to then work with the rapid resolution method. Because I think those two, I mean, I know personally that using those two methods led to me getting all of the results that I got in my life. Really, to me, all of the other things evolved or fell from using those methods consistently. So I know that if you were to work with those two methods consistently, you would be so happy with the results. Um, and then I've given you these other methods because they can also be useful. They can also be very helpful additions. Are they necessary? You would have to be the judge of that. But start with something. Work with that consistently. Get the results. Come back here and ask questions or report your results. I would like to hear both of those things. It's helpful for me to know, if you have questions or if something's not clear to you, let me know that because that allows me to do a better job explaining these things so that you and others can get the results because that's my goal. Um, and then also, I really appreciate hearing your results. That's helpful mostly for other people because when other people can hear that other people get results, that can inspire them to then be willing to put these things into practice. So please do both of those things. Now, a couple of more things that you could do that I would appreciate. So, number one is, as I said, many people, not many people, some people tell me that I'm giving away too much. Maybe that's true. But one thing that you could do that would be really helpful for me personally, if you're willing to do it, would be think about who do you know who would benefit from what it is that I share. And please share with them one of my videos that you believe could be useful to them. Because if you do that, that will help more people to learn about these things, which will allow more people to get the results. And I think that that would be a really nice world where more people are empowered. So please share. Just think right now about who do you know who would benefit and think about a video that you could share with them that would help them, that they might be open to. And if also you could let me know if there are people who you know who you think could benefit from this, but you think that they would need to hear it in a particular way in order for it to make sense to them, let me know what that is so that I can then communicate in that way to allow those people to hear the message so that they can then put these things into practice and get the results in their lives. So I would really appreciate it if you would do those things for me. That would really make a difference for me. For people who will watch this on YouTube, one more thing that you can do is you can go to my website, joeylott.com. And when you go there, you'll see the opportunity to get a free digital copy of this book. And I think that you would really benefit from getting a copy of this book and then reading it. And also, I'm going to mention that I'm planning on actually updating this book to add some workbook elements to it so that you can, and I'm going to be including some of these methods in the book so that anybody who has that book will be able to use that as a guide in order to be able to put these things into practice. For those who are already members of my email list and you already have a copy of the book, when I update it, you will get, I'll send out an email so that you can download the updated version of the book as well. That's, I think it. I'm sure there's always something that I forget to mention, but I think that's probably it. So for those who are watching this on YouTube, this is going to be the end for now. Blessings to you and take care.